thank you all for this opportunity, Raja and the team, where I could speak on the opportunities of human capital in the cruise industry. I had a very small notice that I was given 3 days or 4 days to put this together. So I'm really not going to deal with the entire gamut of challenges and opportunities that come across. But I will just pick up a few that are important and essential for a small gathering like this. These are the overall growth opportunities, and I have Neville speak a little bit about this. But these are what the current global cruise lines are talking about. The berth capacities that have been increased by 190%. And there is around about 20,000 of berths which have been created additional because ships have been sold out and are now with different owners. So there is a lot of increase in the goodwill of ships coming back into operations. And that's where it is important to understand that opportunities in the cruise industry will continue to grow unless, of course, we have our governments very keen to shut it down. More or less, we will find a lot of opportunities coming and the growth happening. Looking at the opportunities that come across for India or as a global across the world, there is a size, as I said, which has increased. So there's a lot of opportunities which will come up for candidates to start working or start looking for cruise line as an opportunity. There will be a lot of hiring happening, irrespective of the fact that cruise ships are coming back into operations. There will be a lot of requirements in terms of bringing in fresh hands. While all these increases happen, there will also be an opportunity for people who are still working in the cruise line to get promoted, and there will be promotional and positional growth for existing crew. This is one of the pain points that most of the Indian crew exhibit or advise, that they don't get promoted very quickly in the system, and most of the higher positions are lying with European crew. So looking at this growth, I think as India and Philippines and Indonesia, where these are the three major players in the market, we will see that India as a skill set point of view will have a lot of opportunities coming their way. Allied economic growth, if ships are based in India or all Indian ports, the overall growth of the industry in terms of manpower happens if there is a lot of other things across it, right? If you look at ships coming into India, for example, the amount of opportunities that the port agents get, bunker people get, cruise, handling agents over there get. So overall, when you see that when Indian ships come into India, there's a lot of experience, so there's a lot of growth that happens across with all other different industries as well. And that's what's important, because manpower as the increase happens, you automatically require manpower for all those places. One of the opportunities that we will have as India and when ships coming into India is having good port facilities. I was very happy where Neville said that they've got into this PPP mode for Mumbai and Goa, and that's so essential for the government or for any of cruise lines to come to India to have international standards. Currently, if you look at most of our ports, except I think so Bangalore, which has now come up, or Kochi, which has come up now, is that we have some resemblance to international standards. But Mumbai is coming back slowly, and I hope that she will do that fantastic job of putting it on the world map of best international ports. So that will bring a lot of growth in the manpower industry as well, and mind you, most of these people who will be hired in these places would be actually from cruise ships because they know how to service. They have been trained how to service international guests. So you will find a lot of opportunities and people will start moving from their cruise line jobs and settling down into these port facility positions that come up. The opportunities that will arise in skill, compliance and mental conditioning. While we have a Palontra, I think so the last was that we had over 200 institutes catering to STCW and compliance and skills, providing skill-based training, and the government is doing a lot of efforts on that. But there is still a niche requirement within this industry for people to be trained for cruise lines and giving them mental conditioning of how to manage the cruise line opportunities. Now, what happens with COVID hitting, that most of the companies or most of the cruise ship clients have started to say about that the crew on board have not been able to manage this transition between having being able to go out at every port, having that freedom of enjoyment on the ship. Now it is all curtailed to a large extent. Most of it happens that now the crew are not allowed to go ashore by most of the cruise companies just because they need to protect them, protect the guests, and the whole environment. So there's a lot of mental conditioning required because people are not able to stay for more than 3-4 months. They are coming back. So there's an opportunity over there where we could have skill sets improved over there. Also in compliance training, which is STCW and things like that, and thanks to the government that they have brought in a lot of agility in managing this COVID thing. But there is still a lot and can be done to ensure that quality compliance training is provided. There are still loopholes within the system, but that's okay, that's not a problem. What is there is that there is an opportunity for skill-based training provided. This Neville shared about this, and I wanted to show the impact, the economic impact that a cruise line or the country has when they have cruise ships coming into India. That's the $385 and $100 is spent as an average when you bring a cruise ship into the country or while someone is embarking the ship. Now this is important to understand that if we have world-class ports, if we have a whole set of things, what happens in a normal terminal, a port terminal across different countries, you will see that these numbers stack up, even will have the same effect in our country, because that's where the growth happens for the overall industry. So that's an opportunity again to grow. What is the client looking for? He's generally looking for a well-qualified crew, someone with right attitude and personality, always available, medically fit, and fully compliant with certificates. Now this is his want, his need. He wants it at the drop of a hat. If tomorrow I want to send someone, can I send someone? Now here's where the challenges start, because to get a well-qualified crew, you need to have people who are training you well. If you don't have a training facility that is providing and is only providing it for the money or for the commercial reasons, you will never have a well-qualified crew. He will have the certifications. See, there is one thing which is certification, one thing which is actually qualified. Certification on paper is very easy to get, but qualified crew is difficult to find. The attitude and personality, we have a high skill set in India, and I'm so glad that we really have a thing. But what is important is to have the right attitude and personality, meeting international requirements and standards. Always available, challenges are there, and especially with now with the COVID, there are further challenges that have compounded into it. Medically fit, we have started to see a lot of challenges in terms of medical fitness. as Chef was saying that he's making them run at 5:30, which is good, because sitting at home, even the ex-crew now when we are seeing them and putting them back for medical testings, many of them fail the medical testings. So let's go to what are the actual challenges that we could see in this industry. Globalization and international competition. This is an interesting part because as different industries are opening up, different sectors are opening up, and people are looking to see that are there opportunities outside the cruise industry? Are there opportunities which will give them the facility to stay ashore? And with international competition happening with Philippines and Indonesia and East European nationals coming up, there is a challenge to see if we will be able to match up to this as India or an Indian crew composition. Now, the uncertainty of job given the complex protocols of lockdown. This affected the Indian industry to a large extent because when COVID hit, a lot of people lost their jobs and there was no certainty when it is going to come back. There were no protocols for a large extent in how to send people across. India may have those protocols in place, but foreign nationals or foreign countries were not willing to bring crew into them. They had just locked their borders down. So that uncertainty played a large extent on the Indian crew mindset. What did they do? They knew that they were not going back to the ships. Ships were not flying. They started picking up and dabbling into businesses, into new jobs, into allied industries and things like that. That sort of, took them away from the cruise industry. And that's when one of the challenges came up when we saw the cruise industry coming back now, is that the crew are not able to come back because they're still very uncertain that tomorrow, what they're talking about, the third wave and the fourth wave, what happens to my job? I'll go for 2 months, come back, and after that I lose my job. So where do I do? So I better stay in India, stay in my hotel, stay in the allied job that I've got. At least I'm getting some money. I do not want to go. So that was a real big challenge that we saw while we started to open up the cruise ships. Wages and salaries, we have seen most of the owners have brought down the salaries because of the pandemic. Rightly so, they need to even manage that aspect of it, and we respect that. But that becomes a challenge to the people. They don't want to go back now at a reduced salary. They don't want to go back saying that, if I catch COVID, what's the use of having $1,000 salary when I was getting $1,600 earlier? So they prefer to have a $50,000 or 50,000 rupees salary in India, but not take $1,000 salary or $1,200 salary. So wages have become a challenge in these current situations. Of course, otherwise cruise lines were paying pretty good. The pandemic and family reunion and comforts. This was a little dovetailing into what I spoke earlier. The pandemic brought all the families very, very close. The pandemic brought people to the realization that life is not all about everything else, but it is all about just being together and enjoying those few moments. In these pandemic times, the crew have become so close to their families that getting them out now from their homes and saying, there's a job for you now waiting, it's just not happening. They still say, okay, can we get 1 month more? Can we get 2 months more? Can I go in January of 2022? This is when we started doing, started asking them to join back in August onwards. And I think it's important to, and many of people have made those decisions just to stay back with their families. And I appreciate that role of theirs, but that was a challenge to people like us because now we have to start. And the funny part of it is that owners don't believe this. They believe that it was, that as soon as they say cruise ships are open, they will have a line standing outside the office waiting to go back. But that's not the truth today. The truth is that these guys are not going back. Lack of complete training facilities, I spoke about that a little earlier. I won't really talk about it much. But there is a challenge where we are not able to provide cruise line specific training. And most of the places that you see that are providing cruise line trainings, you see their owners or you see the establishment, they have never even been on a cruise ship. They have never seen a cruise ship, but he is out of the commercial interest has opened a training center. But if you ask him a few things about the challenges on the cruise ship, he will never know. And that guy is providing training as per government requirements. So it's not really he's legitimate to operate his business. But is he able to actually tell us about the right thing, what the crew needs to be? We lack it. And diverse workforce on board. One of the challenges that we Indians have seen is working with a plethora of nationalities. On cruise ships, we get around about between 30 to 40 different nationalities that you work with. And here's where the challenge comes in, that how do you manage, because each comes with its own culture and its own ways of working. For some people, saying darling is very, very normal in the conversation. For some people, calling them a darling would be a sexual harassment. So managing that entire thing is a challenge, and we see a lot of people who get sent home for not only sexual harassment but even for sometimes parties. So a good way to do it is that you have a party. Someone is going home, Filipinos going home, or any other nationality is going home. We Indians are very excited to have parties. So we have a party, and the best thing what the Filipino does or the next guy does, he goes and says, oh, we had a party. Can you go and check them out for breath analyzers? They get breath analyzers and they get sent home. And when you debrief these crew, they say, sir, we just had a small party and it all happened. So that diverse workforce, understanding how to work amongst these different nationalities is something that a challenge that we find. Some of the internal challenges, what happens with the people, work-life balance. They go away for 8 months, they don't come back, for 2 months. They're working for 8 months, they come back after 6 to 8 months, and that's a challenge in itself, where they don't find work-life balance. When they come back, they're just sitting at home for 2 months. Of course, they have a lot of time with their family and so on and so forth, but there is no work-life balance for them. Retaining talents, I spoke a little bit about that. It's getting difficult by the day to keep the right candidate in the right place if we don't give him promotions or don't have proper wage given to him. So retaining the good guys are of course finding different opportunities, paying very, very well outside, and they move on. So those are some of the challenge of retaining those people. Conflict management is something which we have seen that they are not able to manage. The crew is not able to manage conflict. Conflict with their homes, conflict sometimes with their family members while they are on board. If a call comes from the family saying that I've got problems, they just can't manage that conflict. They just go on to resign and come back home. So there is an internal challenge where conflict management is essential. Employee selection. Again, we have a challenge of how, from all this plethora of people, how do you pick the right candidate? Sometimes we just get 15 minutes, 20 minutes to do an interview, and in that we cannot pick everything. We can pick a few things, but we can't pick most of it, and that's where the challenge comes in. Limited growth opportunities for crew and the applicants. Most of the cruise companies that are picking crew from India are picking crew at the lower level. It's very difficult to get people at the higher level and ask them to pick at higher levels. And that's where they have to spend a lot of time. So if you join as a galley utility, you'll probably do 5 or 7 contracts of galley utility before you even become a galley supervisor. So that's where we don't have it. No show leave. This is, I mentioned that there's going to be a challenge on this, and this is causing a lot of mental issues as well. Wage and salaries, of course, we've already spoken about. Thank you for the small time that I could get to share the challenges that we are facing and what India faces as a country. But of course, happy to answer any questions after this, and I'll be around, so if you need any questions answered, look forward to that. Thank you very much.